Hey, what's up, Chipola Nation? Welcome to the Fifth Quarter Podcast. I am your host, Rob,
I'm your co-host, Smitty.
and we want to welcome you. As always, be sure to check out the website, chipola.edu. It should be down here in the bottom. It's our left, Smitty. On the video, it'll be on your right. Be sure to check that website out if you're interested in going back to school, furthering your education, so on and so forth. Smitty, we are close to the Super Bowl. What are we, 6 days away, 5 days away, somewhere like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, the Cincinnati Bengals, the LA Rams, that is the matchup. So why don't you kick us off and tell us who is favored to win the Super Bowl this year?
It's pretty obvious with the Super Bowl being hosted in Los Angeles. The LA Rams are favored by 4.5 points with a 66% chance of winning it all according to ESPN polls.
So Cincy has no chance, according to the experts.
That's what they say, but I think Joe Burrow has something else to say about that.
Yeah, I was telling somebody today, they said, come on now, you don't think Cincy could win it? I said, I'm not saying Cincy can't win it. Matter of fact, I am rooting for the Bengals to win it, simply because Burrow's the underdog in his sophomore season, and the Cincinnati Bengals have, it's been getting close to, 40 years since they've been here, a little over 40 years maybe, 30 years even,
Yes.
to be a little more accurate. But L.A., they've got the defense, man. It's kind of hard to argue against their cash-in season. You know, they went after, who was it, Von Miller. They secured Jalen Ramsey. They got Eric Weddle back there at safety.
Don't forget Cam Akers.
Don't forget Cam Akers, the running back on the offensive side of the ball. You know, he's pretty stout. And then, of course, you've got the mean green Aaron Donald up on the defensive line. So L.A. really cashed in, went and got some players in the offseason. That's probably one of the many reasons, Smitty, why they're in the Super Bowl. L.A.'s got the defense, but Joe Burrow supposedly made a comment that he is confident his offensive line could rise to the occasion and find a way to stop L.A.'s ferocious pass rush.
Well, they've been proving it time and time again, especially in the divisional round and the AFC playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs. But let's go back to defense, because this is really paramount, especially when it comes to the odds and the people betting for or against the Rams. Points allowed per game. You got about 18.3 points per game for the LA Rams, 19.7 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Mm-hmm. However, yards allowed by the defense, 286.7 yards for the LA Rams.
Really?
395.7 for the Cincinnati Bengals. That defense speaks volumes. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes defense wins championships.
This is true. This is true, and nobody can argue that. Matt Stafford, you know, they've got a seasoned quarterback. So let's go back to the offensive side of the ball. Smitty, you started off with defense. I'd like to break down the offense a little bit. You know, let's look at the quarterback matchup. Burrow's in his sophomore season. Not quite as experienced as his opponent on the other side of the ball. Matt Stafford's got, 11, 12 years of experience reading NFL defenses. Now, granted, he's probably got a little more losses than he does wins considering the team that he was with, and that's no shade at Detroit, but we're just calling it like we see it. You know, Matt Stafford, a phenomenal facts. Matt Stafford was a phenomenal quarterback coming out of Georgia. I believe he was the number 1 overall pick, as was Joe Burrow in the, was it 2020 draft? So here, not only do you have matchups of two quarterbacks who both have promising careers. You know, I'm sure Matt Stafford, when he first got drafted, was looked to have a promising career. And it's taken him a little bit, but here he is at the Super Bowl.
Well, he just needed the right staff, right coaching staff, and the right players around him. Not to say that he had the right players at Detroit as well. There were a few great exceptions at the Detroit organization, but the management and the coaching was just. They were just awful.
And that goes back to what this podcast is all about. You know, you got the planning and the preparation and the business side of it. You know, you can bring in talent, and that's great. You know, the Green Bay Packers organization is a prime example of some mismanagement. We'll get to that in a minute, Smitty. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. But going back to the Burrow-Stafford matchup, what you're seeing is two quarterbacks. Both of them are number 1 overall picks in their respective careers. Both facing each other in the Super Bowl. The only difference maker is One of them's got a little more experience than the other one. Now, I'm not counting Joey Ice, as they call him there in Cincy, out, Smitty. All I'm simply saying is Stafford, in this case, is definitely the veteran, so he knows what he's looking for. He can exploit the mismatches, and I really think Sean McVay and his offensive coaching staff there in L.A. Can probably pick apart this Cincy defense. Now, on the other side of that, Joe Burrow, coming off his sophomore season, has faced some very seasoned opponents, probably 3 or 4 years ahead of him. And he has found a way time and time again to will that Cincinnati offense and that team to find a way to win games. Beating the Cincinnati Bengals, even though it was by 3, or beating the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm sorry. They found a way to win. You look at the Tennessee Titans in the divisional round, they found a way to win. And everybody was saying after that divisional round, well, they're going to get to Kansas City and they're going to get destroyed. Well, no, they're still here. Now that they've made it to the Super Bowl, nobody's even given Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals a chance. Smitty, I would have to go with Cincy by 3 points on the Super Bowl. I know that's a stretch, and I know the odds are not in Cincy's favor. However, I would have to say Cincy, if they can find a way to play sound defense, score when it matters, move the ball downfield on offense, and don't turn it over, we could be looking at a very exciting Super Bowl matchup.
Oh, yeah. And the most important thing to remember is that there are 2 halves.
Yep.
And especially in the second half, good quality teams make the proper adjustments.
Yep.
So both teams have shown that they have the capability and the structure to create corrections to their game plan to pretty much propel them to a victory.
Yep.
So it's going to be interesting to see how they are going to look at this from a game plan perspective. Especially, I'm pretty sure both coaches want to redeem themselves, especially the LA Rams after that abysmal Super Bowl outing last time against the Empire.
Yeah, I'm glad that you kind of brought that up because that was fixing to be my next point. Sean McVay is no stranger to the Super Bowl. 2018 was his last stop, but then he was facing, the one and only Darth Vader Tom Brady, in the Empire, known as New England Patriots, who at the time were just like they always have been. They were on a streak, winning football games, and they win when it mattered most. But one thing that was interesting about that LA team in 2018, 2017 or 2018, whichever it was, but some of the fans know exactly what Super Bowl we're talking about. I remember LA getting up on them, and Tom Brady does what he's always been good at. They go into the locker room at halftime, they settle down, they make the adjustments, they come back out, and they find a way to pick apart that defense and win the game. And, here I want to challenge some of the fans that are going to watch this and say, well, I just don't think Cincy's got what it takes to beat LA. Let's say, hypothetically, LA gets out 3-touchdown lead going into the half. You never know what kind of adjustments that coaching staff is making there in Cincinnati, because I would like to remind the fans that this same Cincinnati team was down 18 points to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game just a week or two ago.
Oh, yeah.
And Cincy come back out that second half, made the adjustments that mattered, and found a way to come back and win that game 27-24. So my money's going to be with Cincy no matter what, but it's very hard to argue against LA's defense. Now, Smitty, we could be getting this all wrong. LA could come out from start to finish and dominate and just finish the game strong with a 1 or 2 touchdown lead. But I think Joe Burrow, whether he wins or loses, he's going to give people a reason to remember his name. He's not going to go anywhere.
I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
But here's the thing: look, the overall stats, it's stellar, especially for these two quarterbacks. You got about 34-14 touchdown interception for Joe Burrow, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. And you got Joe Mixon over there running the ball like crazy.
Seasoned guy, kind of a veteran.
Oh yeah,
sorts.
about 1,205 yards.
Okay.
With 13 touchdowns.
Yeah, not bad.
And you got Jamar Chase.
Yep.
His go-to guy.
The LSU connection, man.
Oh yeah, 13 touchdowns with 1,455 yards. And all that.
No doubt. Do we say Rookie of the Year, or is that too soon? Has he made the case in your eyes, Smitty, or your eyes on somebody else for Rookie of the Year this year?
I hadn't really been catching up on the rookies, in all honesty.
I can tell you somebody else I'm going to throw out there for Rookie of the Year, even though they had a disappointing season. They were able to get into the wild card, but it ended so soon. Najee Harris, running back from Alabama, drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's
I
right.
think he had a phenomenal year at the running back position.
And what's your thoughts on Defensive Player of the Year?
Defensive Player of the Year. Ooh, we talking rookies? We talking veterans? What are we? Overall? Player of the Year for the defensive side of the ball for me, I really didn't watch a whole lot of defensive players, so I really don't want to say just for the fact that I didn't give it enough time and enough thought and enough preparation to be able to make that careful opinion. What would you say?
I'll say T.J. Watt.
What?
Because he's been pretty stellar on defense, especially for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and
Yeah.
I think he tied for a record for sacking the quarterback. I think.
Okay. Well, defensive player of the year, that's tricky because the bad part about naming your defensive player of the year, whether he's a rookie or a veteran, is somebody will always rebuttal it with stats. I mean, I'm sure he had great, phenomenal stats, but somebody else will always disagree. But anyway.
What else do you have in mind? Oh, the mock draft.
Do we dare tread here?
Well, the draft is around May or April, so
April? Yeah.
and
March, April, somewhere like that.
no, I'm pretty sure it's April.
Yeah, I think it starts like first part of April, something like that. Which, keeping that in mind, Smitty, there seems to be a lot of controversy surrounding who's going to be the number one overall pick. CBS released their mock draft. We're going to talk about the first 6 picks today. I mean, unfortunately, we can't talk about all of them. We would love to do that, but we don't have enough time in this podcast. Trapasso, I believe is his name at CBS. Again, y'all forgive me, I may butcher some of these names, has released his mock draft for the first round. Smitty, there seems to be a lot of controversy between the number one overall pick. But he's got Evan Neal, the offensive lineman junior from Alabama, going number one overall. As many of you NFL fans know, Jacksonville has the number one overall pick ahead of the Detroit Lions at number 2.
Thanks, Urban Meyer.
Yeah, thanks, Urban Meyer. So Evan Neal is projected to go number 1, but there seems to be this guy, Akeem Ikwanu, the offensive lineman. He's a sophomore out of NC State. There's a lot of analysts now moving him up to the number 1 slot over Evan Neal, which, Smitty, you don't want to speak on Ikwanu because I don't really know much about him. Didn't watch a whole lot of NC State, even though they were in the ACC. But Evan Neal, I remember watching, a couple of his playoff games with Alabama. He's quick on his feet. He's athletic. He's a heavy guy, but he's real quick, real strong up top. I don't know how, if I'm Jacksonville, I know for a fact that they're going to need an offensive line. They're going to need an edge rusher and a wide receiver. Now, the direction is wide open as far as Jacksonville is concerned. It just depends on which direction they're going to want to go. You've got Trevor Lawrence, so you've got a quarterback. Barring he stays healthy, you want to build around him. If I'm Jacksonville, maybe we don't go offensive line. Maybe we go wide receiver. Could be speaking way out of turn, but the experts seem very sure that Jacksonville's going after an offensive lineman, regardless whether it's Ikwanu out of NC State or Evan.
Well, that would make logic sense because he's been being tackled and sacked multiple times in the pocket.
Yeah.
You would want to protect your star quarterback if you want to go that route.
Right. However, I would like to rebuttal. On the other side of the ball, you want to build your defense up. That 2017 Jacksonville Jaguars team had Jalen Ramsey, Miles Jack, and a host of other great defensive players. If you want to build up your defense, do you pass up on Aiden Hutchinson, the edge rusher out of Michigan? Do you pass up a chance to get an edge rusher in there, a good defensive end, solid guy, and build up on the defense? Or are they going to go the way we're thinking they're going, Smitty, get him an offensive lineman in there, a fresh pair of legs, a rookie, tackle out of Alabama? And here's something else to consider. It ain't all just, rookie draft picks. There's a lot of free agents supposed to be released the offseason this coming year.
Oh, yeah.
So, who's to say that Jacksonville's supposed to have pretty good cap space behind the Dolphins. So who's to say Jacksonville doesn't wise up and say, let's take this money we got, this cap space. Let's try to pick us, 2 or 3 seasoned offensive linemen, good, solid offensive linemen, in addition to this rookie that we'll draft, and try to build a 5-man front for Lawrence to be able to throw dots.
Yeah, that would kind of make sense, but
I mean, planning and preparation.
Of course, but if they pull something like the New York Giants does almost 4 years running, they're going to find a way to screw up. But with that being said, I picked up this mock draft from the PFF.com. The author is Seth Galina. It just released today, and
this should be interesting.
Yeah, because he's got tackle Charles Cross from Mississippi State as number one draft.
See, this is the problem. Why would you take a guy from Mississippi State, which again, we're not throwing any shade at the football programs. It's just it's very hard to argue against the players that Alabama produces, especially offensive linemen. I can go ahead and tell you right now, just on name alone, if I'm in the NFL, I'm a GM and I'm looking to draft an offensive lineman or whatever my need is, and an Alabama player that's been coached up under Nick Saban is available, chances are I'm going to take that player from Alabama because Saban coaches his players for the next level.
Right, but there's a caveat to that.
Okay.
Some of the Alabama players hadn't worked out too well.
Okay. Well, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
You forget. I forgot the name of that player. The one from the Raiders that was in that high-speed car crash and all that.
Henry Ruggs, the third or the second, something like that. I believe it was Henry Ruggs the third.
Yeah.
Well, but Smitty, to be fair, that's more of an off-the-field issue. I don't think you can fault Nick Saban for that because, to be fair, again, not an Alabama fan, but just playing devil's advocate here. When he's under Nick Saban's care, when he was at the University of Alabama, you never heard anything about him. But you give these young guys a contract, they get in the NFL, they start making millions of dollars, they start living the high life, the party life, whatever the case is. You don't always use sound judgment, and you end up paying for it. So I don't know that I could necessarily fault Saban or his coaching staff for that. I think that was a personal choice and an off-the-field issue. I'm talking about from a player's perspective.
Player standpoint,
yeah.
he was
athletic ability.
Yeah, he was great. But
I just don't see any reason why anybody would pass up an opportunity to draft any player that's been coached up under Nick Saban because he prepares his players well for the next level. Does all of them work out? No, but about 90% of them.
Oh yeah, most
Case
definitely.
in point, Mac Jones.
There you go.
Jerry Jeudy with the Broncos, wide receiver, another one. You look at, was it Devontae Smith with the Eagles? Mm-hmm. And even though Jalen Hurts transferred, you still have to credit some. Look how Jalen Hurts
and he did pretty well with Oklahoma.
Yeah,
he got him in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they can never seem to go past the semifinals.
Yeah, it is kind of disappointing.
Now, what do CBS got for their second overall pick?
Okay, the guy that I'm following, there's a panel of 4. So I'm going with the one that closely matches my views. At number 2, they got the Detroit Lions taking the edge rusher out of Michigan, a senior, Aiden Hutchinson. I would have to wholeheartedly agree with that, Smitty. Detroit probably had the second worst record. I think they had one more win on their record ahead of Jacksonville.
And they had a tie.
Yeah. So I wholeheartedly agree with the Detroit taking an edge rusher. Now, it's my understanding that their team needs a quarterback. I don't know that I agree with that. You traded for Jared Goff. Jared Goff is still plenty young. He's only been in the league 5-6 years. He's still got plenty of time, barring that he stays healthy and you teach him, the fundamentals and keep him well coached. I don't see no reason why Jared Goff can't make you a good quarterback. Just build around him. So I agree with that. At number 3, this guy has got Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge rusher out of Oregon, another sophomore. They got the Houston Texans picking him up, Smitty.
What?
Yeah.
From Oregon?
Yes, from Oregon. A sophomore out of Oregon.
Why not Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan, though?
Because Detroit's got the number 2 pick ahead of Houston. And so every expert on this panel, with the exception of maybe 2, seems to think he's going to go number 2 overall. Somebody's going to get him. Now, what's funny to me is there was speculation about 2 months ago. I'm showing here that Aiden Hutchinson was going to go number 1 overall. Mm-hmm. It was a toss-up between him and Evan Neal, I believe the offensive lineman out of Alabama.
Now, hold on a second there. Now, according to this author's mock draft, they got Detroit Lions picking a cornerback.
A corner? Who do they go with corner? Who's the guy?
Derek Stingley from LSU.
I mean, I really don't know how to feel about that. I mean, Yes, that would be a good position. I mean, if we're being realistic, any position for Detroit would be a good position to fill. Their defense was terrible last year. I mean, ahead of right behind Jacksonville's defense. So any position really would be good to fill. It's just there is no easy way to start. You got to start somewhere. I mean, I don't know that I see them going corner if you can't fix the issues up front. And again, Smitty, we could be getting this totally wrong. Detroit could surprise everybody and go corner and then pick up a couple of good edge rushers in free agency. We seem to be forgetting that.
Don't forget they have a tendency. Some teams have a tendency to get what they need from the other rounds as well.
Yeah, and
trading Cowboys
for picks.
Yeah, trading for picks and all that. And you remember, Cowboys got Dak Prescott in the later rounds.
Yeah, this is true.
It's worked out for them in the long run.
And Tom Brady was 199 overall.
Yeah.
Went on to win 6 Super Bowls, 7, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, so let's not count people out. You're right. Number 4, they got the Jets taking Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame, Jr. That's probably solid considering how the Lowell Jets need a lot of help at defense, and that was the number 4 pick behind Houston.
Okay. According to Seth from PFF, he's got the New York Jets getting tackle Evan Neal from Alabama.
I don't see it happening, even though the Jets have drafted some notable Bama players in the past.
Well,
Joe Namath,
they need to protect Zach Wilson, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So why not go offensive lineman? Why go with, I don't know, Smitty? I mean, again, that's what this podcast is all about, is just simply, it's opinion based. We're just sharing our opinions from a fan side of perspective. So if there's anybody watching right now that you think we're just ridiculous, please don't hate us. We're just simply sharing our opinions, as would you, the viewers at home. Smitty, number 5, they got New York, the Giants, the G-men, taking Akeem Ikwanu, the offensive lineman out of NC State, a sophomore. And to wrap this up, Smitty, the number 6 pick in the first round, they got the Carolina Panthers picking up the senior out of Pittsburgh University, Kenny Pickett. Now, Smitty, number 5, it kind of explains itself, New York going with the offensive lineman, but I want to talk just a couple of minutes about Carolina going Kenny Pickett. I disagree with that. I say Pittsburgh finds a way to possibly trade up, being how Ben Roethlisberger has now stepped down, retired. I don't know that Mason Rudolph is going to be the guy in Pittsburgh for the Steelers. I say the Steelers try to trade up and get this guy in their own backyard. He was pretty good last year with Pittsburgh. I watched a couple of his highlights. He's able to get out of the pocket as needed. He's able to throw it, really big downfield. So I don't see any reason why Pittsburgh doesn't possibly go after this guy. And Smitty, I'm noticing a pattern here, with the exception of 3 offensive positions. 3 picks straight are defensive-minded players. You got 2 edge rushers and a safety going in the first round. It's going to be a pretty phenomenal offseason, to say the least. And I say this is the year of the defense going into 2022. What do you say?
It seems like it.
Yeah.
But I hate to be that guy, but
there's always that guy, Smitty.
Well, it makes things interesting. But
yeah,
New York Giants are going to find a way to screw this up.
What is it with you and everybody screwing everything up?
Listen, when you're the New York Giants and have a one of the top 10 draft picks, you don't go with like a wide receiver with good hands, unlike Evan Ingram, and people to protect your quarterback. You go for a quarterback, Daniel Jones, who was projected to be in the second or third pick.
You mean the guy who gets tackled by ghosts?
No, that's
that was Daniel Jones.
No, it's not.
Or was that Zach Wilson?
It ain't Zach Wilson. That was Sam Darnold.
Was it Sam Darnold?
Yes.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, because I know the Hyper Yinzer urinating tree made a comment on that.
Oh, okay. So we're going with urinating tree. Okay. You know what I think, Smitty? I think you need a nice house, and you need to calm down. Just calm down.
Yeah.
Smitty, it's always interesting talking football with you, because sometimes we have to keep the fans honest. We don't always agree, as you can tell. Smitty, there's another team we haven't talked about. We mentioned them last week as far as team choices, like who to root for in the offseason. Green Bay has got their hands full figuring out if they're going to keep Devontae Adams Aaron Rodgers, and a few other notable players on Green Bay's defense going into 2022. The cap space is working against Green Bay, and now, Smitty, there was talk for the longest time that they find a way to trade Rodgers and Adams away to Denver for a few first-round picks because the draft capital on Rodgers right now is high. He's healthy. He can still play. He's still got an arm on him. So if they wanted to trade him away, not only would they free up lots of cap space, but they could probably get multiple first-round picks. And I read a report this morning about 8:30 or so that was saying that Adam Schefter and a few of these other analysts are making a lot of these stories up about Rodgers wants out at Green Bay, how it would not be very wise for Rodgers to leave the NFC and go to the AFC. Now that Brady has stepped down as one of the top elite quarterbacks, they're now saying that the NFC is wide open. If Green Bay can find a way, they may have to cut 2 or 3 players, Smitty, to free up some cap space. Maybe sign Jair Alexander, the cornerback, that proved very useful for them last season. Maybe sign him to an extension. You may have to let a couple of defensive guys go. If you can find a way to keep Rodgers and Devontae Adams on the offensive side of the ball and maybe just draft your defense or sign some free agents for a cheaper price, I don't see any reason why Green Bay doesn't make it back to at least to the divisional next year. They just need a few more key pieces in place.
Right.
But it's going to be interesting to see because, the deadline's coming up in March, April, something like that for Rodgers to make a decision. And now he made it clear, we talked about this, I believe, last week, he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild, which is fine. However, he's still got a cannon for an arm, so Green Bay needs to hurry up and figure out what they need to do. The front office is going to have their hands full because Matt LaFleur, the head coach, has stated that he wants Rodgers to come back. He wants Adams to come back. He wants, their key players to come back. But the truth is, if you don't have the cap space, they're going to have to pull a Brady and settle for less money, or they're just going to have to trade him away while they're still hot for the draft picks.
Yeah, I don't see them sacrificing pay to stay at Green Bay.
Maybe not. And I think Aaron Rodgers' salary last year was, what, $42-44 million? So he took up a large portion of their cap space.
Oh, yeah.
And, you got a guy like Devontae Adams, it's kind of like Burrow and Chase over at Cincy. There's that connection there. Rodgers and Adams, it's always been like tit for tat, They've always found that connection in big, close games.
Yeah, that's why Rodgers said if there's any deal, he's got to be with the deal.
Yeah, and see, that the funny thing is, it's where do you sacrifice? Because they're going to have to sacrifice in some places. So do you give up that, in my opinion, was a very great defense last year to rebuild around your offense and just go into free agency, or do you go draft? I mean, there's a lot of off-the-field questions, even for Pittsburgh. I talked about Green Bay and Pittsburgh being one of my 2 teams narrowed down to root for. Pittsburgh's going to have their hands full finding a new quarterback and moving some key pieces around there at the end.
And I think the Cowboys have I don't know if it's the Cowboys or the Packers, but the Cowboys have got a lot of free agents coming up as well.
Yeah. And see, with the infamous Jerry Jones there at the helm in Dallas, you never know what's going to happen.
Honestly, you can't even know with any of these teams nowadays anymore.
No, you really can't. And Smitty, to wrap up, I think we got a couple of minutes left. I figured we'd talk more about teams to root for in the offseason. Smitty, have you given any more thought? Have you added a few more teams to your list, or are you stuck?
I know I'm on the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Yinzers, yes.
Yins.
I'm also I'm on the Broncos. The Broncos have kind of been growing on to me ever since that last ride that Peyton Manning went on.
Denver.
Yeah, the Mile High Club.
At 37,000 feet.
Well,
Was that a Nickelback song?
I don't know.
Rockstar?
Who listens to Nickelback anymore?
Hey, shut your mouth. I listen to Nickelback.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, too. Had somebody tell me the other day, Nickelback was a terrible band. I'm like, your mom was a terrible band. How about that?
Oh.
I just walked away. You know why? Because nobody puts Baby in the corner, Smitty. You don't say that.
I feel like that's a reference I need to know.
No. We'll talk when the camera stops rolling. We'll talk more about that.
Okay.
So,
fine.
anyway, my teams are still pretty set. It's between Pittsburgh and Green Bay. I'm leaning more Green Bay. I think I'm going to join the Cheeseheads. It'd be pretty interesting to see you join the Yinzer cult, waving the terrible towel, woo, stuff like that. I can see you doing that.
As long as I don't have to eat those Pittsburghers.
Pittsburghers?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
You can always be an Eagles fan.
Listen, I don't want to torture myself.
No? Why?
No.
Why?
Have you seen their fan base?
What about Philly's fan base? What do you got against Philly?
They threw snowballs at Santa.
It's because they don't believe in Santa.
No, they were just they were losing, but they didn't lose enough to where they get a good draft pick.
Yeah, it's tough. It's probably tough being an Eagles fan. Smitty, I'm probably going to lean more Green Bay, and I know that probably shocks a lot of people because it's
Hey, it could be worse. I could be New York Giants and just be suffering.
well, I believe there is somebody that I know that their husband is a Giants fan, and it's like, wow, a Giants fan in Florida. The G-men. Now, there was a time when the Giants were really good, man.
They were, yes.
There was a time.
And you got to give them credit where credit is due. They gave us 18-1.
True. And Eli Manning was also capable of beating Tom Brady in some Super Bowls. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, but
He did what his brother could not do. Just kidding.
wow.
Smitty, it's been a blast, man. So
course.
when we come back next week, we will go over the winner of the Super Bowl, man, because this is it. This is the last ride, and then we'll get ready for the off season. We'll get ready to talk draft picks more. We'll get ready to talk early signing day for college.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get ready to talk some more football, man. And Chipola Nation, we want to thank you for supporting the podcast. As always, be sure to check out the website. It should be in this corner of your screen. And as always, be sure to check out on Thursdays our Tech Over Coffee podcast as part of our business and technology department. Thank you so much for making this podcast what it is. We also want to thank our awesome media team for the hard work that they put in making this podcast a success. We will see you guys next time.